Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to do a deep dive into the fascinating story of Scott Bessent.
Oh, yeah.
And let me tell you, this is not your average Wall Street tale.
Not at all.
We're going to be looking at a journey that takes us from like the high-stakes world of hedge funds all the way to potentially the halls of power in Washington.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's really quite a unique blend of experience.
Yeah.
You know, you've got finance in there, a surprising political shift, and even a deep commitment to philanthropy.
Right?
I mean, there's a lot to unpack here, so let's get started.
Yeah, I'm already intrigued.
Yeah.
So to understand this potential Treasury Secretary nominee under President Trump, we need to go back to his roots. Like, where did this guy come from?
Yeah.
Bessent was born and raised in South Carolina,
Okay.
but his path to finance wasn't exactly a straight line. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's actually quite interesting. His initial interest was in journalism, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
He was very active at Yale, even served as an editor for the Yale Daily News.
Wait, so the potential future head of the Treasury Department was almost a journalist?
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
It is. But during his time at Yale, he landed an internship
Oh, okay.
with Jim Rogers,
Wow.
who is a legendary investor.
Right.
And that experience seems to have steered him toward the world of finance.
Okay, so that internship must have been pretty impactful. But even before that, it sounds like Bessent was already a high achiever,
Yeah.
editor for the Yale Daily News, president of the Wolf's Head Society, class treasurer. I mean, this guy was going places no matter what field he chose.
Absolutely. That drive and engagement we see early on definitely foreshadowed his success in finance. He cut his teeth at Brown Brothers Harriman and Kinekos Associates
Wow.
before landing at Soros Fund Management, or SFM, where he really made his mark.
Okay, SFM, that's the hedge fund founded by George Soros, right?
That's right.
The one known for making bold bets on global markets.
Exactly. And Bessent rose through the ranks, quickly becoming a partner and eventually heading their London office. But here's where it gets really interesting, and this is something you finance fans will appreciate.
Okay.
Remember the 1992 Black Wednesday event when Soros famously bet against the British pound?
Oh, yeah, the one where they made over $1 billion?
Exactly.
Wasn't that one of the biggest wins in hedge fund history?
It was a legendary trade, and Bessent played a key role in its success.
Wow.
It involved recognizing vulnerabilities in the British pound's peg to other European currencies, and then taking a massive short position, essentially betting that the pound would be forced to devalue.
Wow, talk about high stakes.
Yes.
And to be able to analyze the situation so accurately and then have the guts to make that kind of bet,
Yeah.
that takes serious skill and courage. I mean, $1 billion.
Huge.
No wonder Bessent became such a respected figure in finance.
Absolutely. That event really cemented his reputation as a brilliant investor. Now, before we go any further, I have to remind everyone, if you're enjoying this deep dive into Scott Bessent's story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on future episodes.
Yes, please do that.
And we love hearing your thoughts.
Yes.
So drop a comment below and tell us what you think so far.
We love connecting with our audience. Okay, so after SFM, what did Bessent do? I mean, how do you top being part of $1 billion win?
Well, he actually did quite a bit. He managed his own hedge fund for a while, then returned to SFM as chief investment officer,
Wow.
and finally founded Key Square Group, his own investment firm.
Hold on. He also taught economic history at Yale during this time.
Yeah.
It's like he can't slow down.
You're getting it. This is what makes his story so compelling.
Yeah.
We see someone who excels in the fast-paced, high-pressure world of finance,
Right.
but also values knowledge and teaching.
Yeah.
It shows a multifaceted personality that goes beyond just the pursuit of wealth.
That's a great point. It's like he's driven by something more than just profits. And speaking of multifaceted, we can't ignore the elephant in the room, Bessent's political affiliations.
Yeah.
This is where things get really interesting, right?
Absolutely. Early on, he was a supporter of the Democrats,
Okay.
even hosting fundraisers for Al Gore and donating to both Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama.
Yeah. And then out of nowhere, he becomes a major donor and fundraiser for, wait for it, Donald Trump.
Right.
He contributed over $1 million to Trump's 2024 campaign.
It's true.
It's quite a surprising turn, to say the least.
It is a significant shift, and one that has many people wondering about the evolution of his political views. But that's a discussion for later. For now, what stands out to you the most about Bessent's journey so far?
Honestly, it's the sheer range of his experiences.
Sure.
From journalist aspirations to high-stakes finance teaching, and now potentially leading the Treasury Department. It's almost like he's lived several lives in one.
You're right. It's a fascinating mix, and it makes you wonder how all these experiences will shape his approach to economic policy.
I'm definitely curious to dig into that more. So before we got sidetracked, we were discussing Bessent's surprising political shift
Right.
from supporting Democrats to becoming a major donor for Donald Trump. What do you make of that transition?
Yeah.
And how might it influence his potential role as Treasury Secretary?
It's a question a lot of people are asking. Some speculate it's tied to shifting economic policies within the parties,
Okay.
while others point to specific events or personal connections that might have, influenced his views.
It's interesting. So we might not have a clear-cut answer,
Right.
but it definitely adds another layer of intrigue to his story. Right?
For sure. And it raises questions about how his political evolution
Right.
might shape his approach to economic policy if he's confirmed for this crucial position. We're not just talking about someone with financial expertise.
Right.
We're talking about someone who's been deeply involved in the political sphere as well.
That's like all these pieces of his life, the finance background,
Right.
the political shift, even his commitment to philanthropy are converging at this moment.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how these different experiences might influence his decisions.
Precisely. It's not every day you see someone move from the world of billion-dollar hedge funds to potentially shaping economic policy for the entire nation. And don't forget, he'd be a historic nominee as potentially the second openly gay man in the U.S. cabinet.
You're right. That's a significant milestone and speaks to the changing political landscape. Now let's talk about the potential impact of his political and financial background on this role.
Okay.
What are some of the key economic issues he might face as Treasury Secretary?
Well, one of the biggest challenges will be navigating the ongoing debate over government spending and the national debt. This has been a hot-button issue for years.
For sure.
And Bessent's stance on fiscal responsibility will be closely scrutinized.
Yeah, with his hedge fund background, people will be watching to see if he leans toward tighter spending controls.
Right.
Or maybe advocates for continued investment in social programs and infrastructure.
Exactly. And let's not forget about international trade.
Oh, yeah. Which is especially critical in today's globalized economy. Bessent's experience in global markets could give him unique insights into negotiating trade deals and managing tariffs. That's a great point. Having seen firsthand how global markets react to economic policies, he'd be in a strong position to make informed decisions on trade agreements. Will he lean toward protectionist measures or advocate for more free trade policies?
It's a question with huge implications for businesses and consumers alike. And then, of course, there are the perennial issues of inflation, interest rates, and economic growth, all things a Treasury Secretary would grapple with on a daily basis.
It's a lot of responsibility, but also a chance to make a real impact. It's fascinating to think about how his background might shape his approach to these complex issues. What do you think, listeners? How do you think his experience will affect his potential decisions? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your take.
We sure would. Engaging with you all is one of our favorite things about this show.
Okay, so we've talked about the economic challenges.
Sure. But what about Bessent's philanthropic work? How might that influence his priorities?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
And we know he's a trustee at Rockefeller University, chairs their investment committee, and supports various causes, children's hospitals, historic preservation organizations like God's Love We Deliver. It shows a commitment to giving back and addressing social issues.
It does. And it suggests that he might bring a more holistic perspective to the Treasury, one that considers the human impact of economic policies. It's not just about numbers.
Right.
It's about people's lives.
I love that you brought that up because that's the core of what we do here at Standing in the Gaps News.
Yeah.
We want to help people understand complex issues and how they impact their lives.
Absolutely.
And speaking of impact, we could really use your help to keep bringing you these deep dives.
That's right. We're currently running a GoFundMe campaign to help us reach a wider audience and improve our production quality.
Imagine better webcams, studio quality microphones, and top-notch editing computers.
Oh, yeah.
All thanks to your support. It would help us deliver even better content.
For sure.
So if you enjoy our deep dives and want to see us grow, please consider donating to our GoFundMe. The link is in the episode description.
We're incredibly grateful for any contribution you can make. Now back to Scott Bessent. We've covered his journey through finance and politics.
Right.
But there's one more element that adds to his story, his personal life.
Yeah, he resides in Charleston, South Carolina with his husband, John Freeman,
Okay.
and their 2 children. It reminds us that even those in high-powered positions have personal lives that shape who they are.
Absolutely. And while we won't delve into personal details, it's important to acknowledge that these aspects contribute to someone's overall worldview and values. All right, so what are your overall impressions of Scott Bessent so far?
I'm really struck by the diversity of his experiences from Yale to Wall Street, from Democratic donor to potential Trump appointee, from finance whiz to philanthropist. It's quite the story, and it makes you wonder how it'll all culminate in this potential Treasury Secretary role.
It's almost like a real-life case study in how individual backgrounds can shape national policies. And as we move into the final part of our deep dive, we're going to explore that potential impact in more detail. So stay tuned, folks, because things are about to get even more interesting.
All right, so we're back for this final part of our deep dive into the world of Scott Bessent.
Okay.
We've covered his impressive journey.
Right.
The political shift, even his philanthropic endeavors.
Yeah.
Now let's zero in on what this all means
Yeah.
for his potential role as Treasury Secretary.
Okay, yeah, it's time to connect the dots and explore the possible impact of his unique background on economic policy. What has me particularly curious is how his experience on both sides of the political aisle might play out.
Yeah, that's a fascinating angle. We've seen the political landscape become increasingly polarized in recent years.
Yeah.
Do you think someone like Bessent, with ties to both Democrats and Republicans, could actually bridge that divide?
It's a crucial question, especially when we're talking about economic policy, where consensus is often hard to come by. If confirmed, could Bessent be a unifying force? Could he find common ground and build bridges on issues like fiscal responsibility trade, even social programs?
Yeah, those are the million-dollar questions, aren't they?
Yeah.
On one hand, his diverse background could equip him to see multiple perspectives and negotiate effectively.
Right.
But on the other hand, he might face skepticism from both sides,
Exactly.
each questioning his true allegiances.
Exactly. His history might be viewed as an asset or a liability, depending on, which way the political winds are blowing.
Right,
And this is where it gets really interesting for us as observers.
right.
How will his past experiences, both in finance and politics, inform his decisions? Will he lean towards traditional Republican economic policies?
Right.
Or will his Democratic ties influence a more moderate approach?
It's a real-life political drama unfolding, and we have a front-row seat.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond the political maneuvering, what about the actual impact on people's lives? How might Bessent's potential policies affect everyday Americans?
Yeah, that's what truly matters in the end. His decisions on issues like taxes, inflation, and job creation will have tangible consequences for millions of people. Will he prioritize policies that favor businesses and investors, drawing on his Wall Street background? Or will his philanthropic leanings translate into a focus on social safety nets and economic equity?
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. But one thing's for sure. Scott Bessent's story is a captivating example of how individual lives can intersect with national politics and economics in unexpected ways.
Absolutely. And it reminds us that these seemingly distant policy decisions actually have a ripple effect on all of us.
Right.
That's why it's so crucial to stay informed and engaged.
Couldn't agree more. And speaking of staying engaged, if you're enjoying this deep dive and want to help us keep bringing you insightful content like this, consider supporting our GoFundMe campaign.
Absolutely. We are passionate about delivering quality information and analysis, but we rely on the support of our listeners to keep growing and improving. With better webcams, studio microphones, and editing software, we can reach a wider audience and create even more compelling content.
You can find the link to our GoFundMe in the episode description. Every contribution makes a difference and helps us continue to stand in the gaps, bringing you the information you need to understand the complex world around us.
Right. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Scott Bessent's world, we want to leave you with one final thought. What do you think his top priority should be if he becomes Treasury Secretary? What should he focus on first to address the economic challenges facing our nation? Head over to the comments section and share your thoughts. We're always eager to hear from our listeners and engage in thoughtful discussions. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating story of Scott Bessent, from hedge funds to potentially leading the U.S. Treasury. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep standing in the gaps.